SportsNite, your home for all SU sports talk.
Whether it was a 5-goal win or just an overtime win, a win is a win, and especially in a loaded ACC, they're going to look back on this one and say, thank goodness we got a win.
There's just, the question marks are so
piling
many
up.
that it makes you think, what if we are in for a second-year hangover?
Autry is in obviously a bad situation because of all the backlash he's getting from the fans because the pressure's high, right? But I also think he has a little bit of leeway.
Breaking down everything from around the hill.
They almost surrendered that lead in the fourth quarter, which is a concern of mine. I would have preferred to see a full 60-minute performance.
And giving hot takes along the way.
I'm just not convinced. Some of the transfers are promising, but if we look at what, national champions are made of, this team has none of that stuff.
It's SportsNite, and it starts right now.
Welcome into SportsNite. Drew Alba alongside Gabe Perrin live until 9 p.m. Fire me up. We got a lot to talk about, Gabe. First and foremost, Syracuse football taking on number 9 Notre Dame tomorrow.
Drew will also talk to the voice of the Fighting Irish, Tony Simeone.
And our reporter, Adam Hipsky, who will be live at the game tomorrow. He'll join the show in about 20 minutes.
And you can't forget about hoops. Syracuse men's basketball heads to the Players Era Festival in Las Vegas next week. We'll have a preview of that as well.
So much to talk about. And if you want to call in and let your opinion be heard, then please do at 315-443-2011. Yet again, it's 315-443-2011. But if you're scared to call in, I get it. Once in a while you just want to type on your phone or your computer screen, then go to at WAER Sports Talk on X and on YouTube. A comment section below will interact with you on that as well. Once again, SportsNite until 9 p.m. All right, Gabe. First off, I know how everyone's thinking about basketball right now, but less than 24 hours away from a matchup versus a top 10 Notre Dame squad, and Syracuse is not in get a college football playoff spot. On the other side, Syracuse only has pride to play for.
Yeah, if you talk to me in August, Drew, this would be a much different conversation about this game because going into this season, Notre Dame, top 10 team, and Steve Angeli coming back, playing in South Bend, but that's not the case anymore. It's a much different scenario than earlier in the year going into this game. And yeah, it's going to be tough. I don't expect them to stay even close. That line, 35.5.
Ridiculous.
That is insane.
Games that Vegas thinks will be closer than the Notre Dame-Syracuse game tomorrow?
No.
You want me to give them to you?
I'm ready.
Western Kentucky versus Illinois. Oof. Mercer versus Auburn.
No.
They think will be closer than tomorrow's game.
It can't be.
And Rutgers versus number 1 Ohio State. Vegas thinks will be closer than Syracuse, who is in a Power 4 ACC conference, versus number 9 Notre Dame tomorrow. They think there's no chance, and I have to agree with them. Filardi listed as, should be listed as the starting quarterback tomorrow. A little bit of action here and there. Got that start a couple of games ago, but really the quarterback carousel for Syracuse has been a scary one this year. After Steve Angeli, who could be playing against his old team, instead he's going to be watching on the sidelines. Unless there's some crazy thing, he goes on there with one leg, leads the Orange to a comeback, and a Disney movie's made about him. I don't think that's going to happen. Syracuse's quarterback carousel, Gabe. What's your thoughts on that? Because it's been a nightmare for me.
No, that'll only happen. If it were to happen, it would be in this game against his former school. But no, throwing that out of the window. It's just tiring at this point, right? Because you see, you have a 3-1 start, get that big win against Clemson.
That's pretty good.
And then you think, okay, you've got this former 4-star coming in, former LSU transfer, Ricky Collins. Okay, it might not be as good. It may be more of a 7-5 season at that point, but then it just hasn't come to fruition. We haven't seen the skill from Ricky Collins at all. I would want to say that there's flashes of brilliance, but there just hasn't been. Mm-hmm. So you get into this endless, vicious cycle of Joe Filardi, of Luke Carney, of Ricky Collins, and it's just at this point really, really tiring because not a single one of them, I don't have any confidence.
Sure. Ricky Collins, you make a good point because Collins was not meant to be this bad. And when he went down, sure, there was some sentiment that this team wouldn't be as good, of course, especially with the way Steve Angeli was playing at that point. But how this has gone is shocking, at least to me. How bad Ricky Collins has been. Gave him 4 or 5 games to start before mixing up with Filardi. Luke Carney got a little bit of action, not listed as the starter. Only has 1 game left, by the way, till that eligibility threshold of 4 games where he has to count it as a year of eligibility. So he could still appear in this game. I find it doubtful. But you're right, Ricky Collins, to me, his season, it almost feels like, my dad's the chef of the household, right, Gabe?
Of course.
And when I came home from school back in the day and he wouldn't be the one cooking, it'd be my mom instead, I would think, well, okay, it's, maybe it's not my dad cooking. Maybe the tacos won't be as good this time around, but we still got a warm meal. But hopefully my mom isn't listening. But let's just say the food left a lot to be desired. And that's kind of this Ricky Collins argument. How bad can it be? He's still a 4-star quarterback, and it turns out really bad. So bad, a lacrosse player, once again, a lacrosse player is starting against a top 10 team in the nation tomorrow.
And it doesn't help that this system, just like your mom may not have the recipes, this system is just not set up for the way Ricky Collins plays. And that's not to deflect blame off of Ricky because he just hasn't been good. However, we've seen over the past 2 years with Fran Brown and Jeff Nixon that this is a pass-first offense. You saw it with Kyle McCord last year.
True.
You saw it in the first 4 games with Steve Angeli. And he is not a pass-first quarterback. His throwing skills, his arm strength, his accuracy are just not there. Now, the running game from him, it's been all right, but that's not something that you've seen featured in this Syracuse offense over the past 2 years under Fran Brown and Jeff Nixon. So, yes, it's not set up for him, but you got to adapt. It's college football. Things change. Things change, every single game from game to game. And if you can't adapt, especially as a starting quarterback, then why are you there?
How is Syracuse going to adapt tomorrow against a top 10 Notre Dame squad? I don't think that well. If you think otherwise, call us in at 315-443-2011. Drew Albaugh alongside Gabe Perrin until 9 p.m. on SportsNite. You can also interact at WAER Sports Talk on Twitter as well. We've talked a little bit about Syracuse and the QB struggles and how that goes. But why is Notre Dame a top 10 team in the country? Well, a lot of it, of course, the defense outstanding, but offensively, it's Jeremiah Love.
It is.
He is a beast, Gabe. 1,135 rushing yards for 17 total touchdowns. Back-to-back seasons with 1,100-plus rushing yards. He is a freight train. He's tough to tackle. And when he gets in the open field, my goodness, a flash of lightning to the end zone.
He's unbelievable, and we've seen the Syracuse defense struggle with the run game so much this season. And I think a lot of it goes back to tackling. And unfortunately for them tomorrow, Jeremiah Love, like you said, he's one of the hardest guys to tackle in the country. And then
so elusive.
Even if he breaks that tackle and he's slowed down a bit, he's still probably faster than anyone else on the field. So for me, to try and stop Jeremiah Love, if you're Syracuse, it goes back to tackling. And not that I'm saying that they're going to do it, but you simply just have to tackle better.
I think the second level tackling, if we want to get into the weeds of it, is going to be really important because I think at this point, obviously Love, so valuable and so much that they do, but really it's when he gets into the open field where he makes his money, and that's where guys like Delorier, Gary Bryant, Demetrius Samuel, that second level defense have to limit those long rushes, and if Love gets going, my goodness, this could be a long night for Syracuse's defense.
Antoine Delorier is going to have so much on his plate tomorrow afternoon, and not that he can't stand up to that, because he has for most of the season, but this is a different beast than he has seen and then this defense has seen throughout this entire season. Jeremiah Love, I wouldn't argue with you. If you said he was the best player in the country, certainly
he's in the Heisman.
Yeah,
he's in the Heisman conversation right now as a running back. He's the number one rated running back that will go, not if, will go in the first couple rounds in the 2026 NFL Draft. He's a stud, and I'm interested to see what Tony Simeone, the voice of Notre Dame football, has to think. We'll talk to him in just 5 or 6 minutes or so. what he thinks about Love, but also if Notre Dame has to bury Syracuse by that 30, 40, 45-point threshold to make any sort of statement. Because right now, Gabe, Miami is breathing down the neck of Notre Dame for that at-large bid. Because Miami beat Notre Dame early on in the season, and the U have a really good argument that it should get in over Notre Dame. Right now, it's the Fighting Irish ranked higher, but if a close game to Syracuse, even if it's a win, that could change things for sure.
Yeah, and you're also going to look back to, okay, what's the head-to-head like? Both these teams played Syracuse. Who played better? Who won by more points? And also, it's a situation where Syracuse could play spoiler. It's different records and different overall context, but it's a similar situation as to
Is there
last
any
year's
chance
Miami.
spoiler, though?
Yeah, I say why not? I'm an optimist. I don't know about
Okay.
you, but I always try to believe in the Orange.
I have 11 why nots on the offense and 11 why nots on the defense that this one's not going to get it done. I mean, maybe? Like, what's the formula, I guess, in your mind where Syracuse pulls it off? Because this team was night and day different last year where the quote-unquote spoiler was to Miami.
I think it's two things. One, like we just talked about, you got to stop Jeremiah Love. And also, you have to stop Jadarian Price behind him, too, because he's a really solid running back in his own right. 589 yards on the season.
Yeah, they got two guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Double-headed
9
monster
touchdowns,
over there.
5.7 per carry. And then on offense, you pretty much have to just pray for a miracle that Joe Filardi just has the game of his life. Now, based on what we've seen, yeah, he went 3 for 3 against Miami with the touchdown. But based on what we've seen, I'm not going to say it's going to happen. I can't say that with any confidence. But it is college football, and you do just never know.
Yeah, you never know, but if there's an 100-sided dice and you just roll that one, maybe Syracuse has one side if it just lands on it. I don't know. We'll have to see. To get a better perspective on this matchup, though, we have the pleasure to welcome the voice of the Fighting Irish onto the show. Talking to Tony Simeone, the radio voice of Notre Dame football and men's basketball on SportsNite ahead of tomorrow's battle between Syracuse and number 9 Notre Dame. Tony, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to this game tomorrow. Should be a fun one between the Irish and the Orange.
Of course, just a couple more to play for the Fighting Irish. Sits at 8-2 right now. College football playoff selection looming. Miami, other teams kind of breathing down the neck of Notre Dame. How important is this one against a struggling Syracuse to make a statement and come out with a resounding win?
Yeah, it's a really interesting time right now with all the CFP chatter, I'd say. As far as Notre Dame's concerned, I think the mindset is obviously take care of your own business, let everybody else do the talking. To your point about, how important it is to win and win handily, I think they do need to make sure they win commandingly against Syracuse. They've won all 8 of their games now by 10 points or more. They were pretty dominant against Pitt last week, and I think it's important to just keep running away from teams as best as they can, to just keep any conversation about Miami jumping them or other teams having a better case for one of those at-large spots getting more realized as we get down the stretch. So I think it's an important game to win, obviously first and foremost, but it's certainly one they want to win by multiple touchdowns and just keep the trend going they've had going here for the last 2 months or so.
You mentioned the trend over the last couple of months. What has changed in your point of view since those first 2 losses and now on an 8-game winning streak?
Yeah, the biggest change has been on the defensive side of the ball. Against Miami and then Texas A&M, I think they are allowing 34 points per game for those first 2 losses. Of course, gave up 41 at home in the 1-point loss against the Aggies. And then really the third game of the year in the first half against the not-so-good Purdue team, they really did not look that sharp. They kind of flipped the switch second half against Purdue. And now, at this point, in the 7 games since Purdue, they've allowed less than 12 points per game. I think it was the second least points allowed by any FBS team other than Ohio, or the second less behind just Ohio State going into last week's game. So the defense has been one of the best defenses in the country since, let's say, game 2.5. So that's been the biggest shift. The offense has been clipping at a high rate, close to 40 points per game, pretty consistently throughout the year. And this is a defense that was really sharp the last few years, really since Marcus Freeman got here as defensive coordinator. They've, of course, been very solid defensively. It was uncharacteristic in the first 2 games against 2 good opponents, But since then, they've really turned it around, and that's what's helped them go on this 8-game winning streak.
You mentioned the defense. The offense maybe just as impressive, though, over 38 points a game. And spearheading that, obviously, it's running back Jeremiah Love. But I want to focus on quarterback C.J. Carr right now. Just a freshman, what has stuck out to you about his maturity and his play as such a young player?
Yeah, I think the tools are all there, right? Everyone was curious about C.J. Carr coming into this year. There was a lot of buzz when he was recruited in Notre Dame, and, of course, then when he got on campus. He sat last year as everyone watched Riley Leonard take Notre Dame to the championship game. And he got pushed by Kenny Minchey, the backup, in fall camp. And there were maybe some questions about, just how good is C.J. Carr going to be if he had to battle it out in training camp. And now the question is, how good is Kenny Minchey if he pushed C.J. Carr the way he did during camp? Because C.J. Carr pretty much from game one has just looked awesome for Notre Dame. He's had a few bumps along the way, as you might expect, though, from any first-time starter. And generally speaking, the kinds of throws that he's able to make, pushing the ball down the field, fitting it into certain windows. I always think in college that throw from one hash mark to the opposite sideline is one that's tough for a lot of QBs. He makes it look really easy. So the tools are all there. Actually, last week he had his first multi-interception game against Pittsburgh. And so I think he's done a nice job of bouncing back and learning from some of his mistakes throughout the year. And it's just the tools and physical skills that really continue to be the most eye-popping part of his ability that gives them this added passing attack that they just have not had at Notre Dame consistently over the past couple decades. It's been really fun to watch.
You mentioned the pair of interceptions last week, just 6 on the season, against a Syracuse football team that's struggling to say the least right now on a 6-game losing streak. How important is it to take care of the football and not give the Orange anything for free?
Yeah, I think that's going to be probably priority number one. And as you alluded to Jeremiah Love earlier, I would imagine it's going to be a lot of the run game early, try to establish that, and then use the passing attack. But we have seen a lot of teams against Notre Dame, because the backs are so good, they'll just load up on the run. And then it's up to C.J. Carr and the receivers to just go beat one-on-one matchups. And I'm sure a point of emphasis will be not to give the ball away. One area that Notre Dame's really struggled with actually is red zone offense. They have a few fumbles inside the red zone this year. So those are the kind of plays in a game against Syracuse that Notre Dame is expected to beat. If they do have those mistakes, that's how you give Syracuse life. And I'm sure the coaching points for offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock, head coach Marcus Freeman, and that entire offensive staff will be, don't beat ourselves, take care of the football, and trust that over 60 minutes your skill and game plan will be enough to beat Syracuse.
Talking to Tony Simeone, the radio voice of Notre Dame football and men's basketball on SportsNite ahead of tomorrow's battle between Syracuse football and a top 10 Notre Dame squad. Mentioned Jeremiah Love a couple times now, over 14 touchdowns, over 1,100 yards. It's back-to-back seasons for Love with over 1,100 rushing yards, which has coincided with your 2 years as the play-by-play voice. So what has impressed you the most about Love over your couple of years?
Yeah, he's just an electrifying talent. I think he's the 6th ever Notre Dame back to have multi-1,000-yard rush seasons, to your point about back-to-back 1,100-plus yard rush seasons. And it's really not so much about the numbers as it is about just the kinds of plays he's able to make. If you saw any of the highlights last year with him hurdling guys, last week's 56-yard touchdown run, just a spin move that truly feels like the kind of thing you can only do in a video game. He somehow can do it. Frankly, kind of the way we talked about C.J. Carr, with him being a quarterback that can push the ball down the field and make throws we haven't seen for a while at Notre Dame. Jeremiah Love is the kind of back that, frankly, Notre Dame has just not had in a while. They're used to seeing Reggie Bush be the talented running back at USC or a different school across the country, and now he's at Notre Dame. I think he's the best non-quarterback in the country for sure. And he might just be the best player in college football with the amount of ability he has. I think also what gets lost with all the highlight reel hurdles, jukes, spin moves is his power and his finishing ability and his blocking ability. If you watch him in the pass game, he's amazing in pass protection. And then if you need 2 yards, he will put his shoulder into you and he will get those yards. He is a very powerful runner, and that can get lost sometimes in just how elusive and deceptive he can be. So he's the complete package. Whenever he goes to the next level, I think he's going to even grow in notoriety because there's NFL fans that will get to know him. But we're just trying to soak in as many games as we get with Jeremiah Love here in South Bend because he's so fun to watch, and hopefully there's another deep postseason run that involves him as well.
Yeah, only a couple of seasons with Notre Dame. It's probably the last one for Love. How important has he been? You mentioned the red zone struggles, here and there throughout the season. How important is Love to kind of run the rock inside the 20?
Yeah, I think that's something they have to figure out if they're going to make another run to the national championship game and try to win a title. Is that Jeremiah Love has been great from 50 plus, 40 plus from distance. He and Jadarian Price, the other back, who might be one of the 3 or 4 best running backs in the country as well. They get to the second level and they make you miss, and they have these huge chunk plays. But when the windows have gotten smaller in the red zone, I'm not going to necessarily put it all on the backs. It's an entire offensive issue that they have just not run the ball or thrown the ball nearly as effectively when everything shrinks inside the red zone. So they certainly need more of Jeremiah Love. He had a great touchdown run in the Orange Bowl, maybe the best 2-yard run you'll see against Penn State last year. Certainly something he and this offense is capable of. But for whatever reason, 10 games into the year, it's been inconsistent. So if you're a Notre Dame fan going into this one, if they told you you're going to beat Syracuse, but what would you like to see on top of that? It'd be when they get in the red zone, can they be efficient and score with relative ease? That'd be something I'm sure all Notre Dame fans are going to have their eyes on in this game against the Orange.
Talking to Tony Simeone, the radio voice of Notre Dame football and men's basketball. Syracuse football takes on number 9 Notre Dame tomorrow night. Let's move to Syracuse for just a moment. Notre Dame's on an 8-game winning streak, red hot. Well, the opposite of hot is ice cold, and that's what Syracuse has been on as of late since quarterback Steve Angeli went down. 6 straight losses, longest losing streak under head coach Fran Brown in a couple of years at the helm. What's your assessment on the Orange heading into tomorrow's clash?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's there's a lot of people here that are disappointed and bummed out that Steve Angeli is not going to be the quarterback in this game. He obviously played a huge role for Notre Dame over the last 3 years, but specifically last year in the Orange Bowl when he came in for Riley Leonard, kind of relieved him and put together a huge drive. I know Marcus Freeman addressed it, hoping he got a chance to talk to him if he does make the trip to South Bend this week. So that's the first part. And then, I think everyone has, great respect for Coach Brown and what he obviously did there last year. Listen, you lose your quarterback, you go out and get in the portal. It's amazing how fragile all these football seasons can be, right? Because you guys have seen the trickle-down effect. And so you're going to get, a true freshman in this one. I think the impression of Syracuse, frankly, from my standpoint, is I wish we got a different version of them with Steve Angeli healthy maybe at the beginning of the year just to see what that team was like and what they could have been. So we'll see what it looks like on Saturday on the field. But my biggest feeling is that I'm bummed out we're not going to see Steve Angeli because it is senior day in South Bend. This is his 4th year. He, would be a senior at Notre Dame. It would have been really neat to see him on the field with a lot of his classmates, but unfortunately we're not going to get that.
Tony, really quick before we go, I know your mind is staunchly in football mode right now, but over here in Syracuse, it's basketball season, and of course you're also you're the radio voice of men's basketball for Notre Dame. What's your assessment on the college basketball landscape kind of heading into this season? Although I know you're probably in college football playoff modes right now as well.
Well, I had a great weekend last week because I went out to Pittsburgh for the Notre Dame football game and then drove to Columbus for Notre Dame Ohio State, and the Irish lost by a point on the final possession of the game. So it was a tough pill to swallow in their first Power 4 matchup of the year. They're headed out to Vegas next week to play Kansas and Rutgers in the Players Era tournament, which has a ton of big-time teams. So we're getting basketball heated up around here. It's maybe a little inverted at Notre Dame where, football is king and basketball is maybe behind that. But for Notre Dame, they're in their 3rd year with Micah Shrewsbury, and there's a lot of optimism around this program. And frankly, we're coming up on this week between this Syracuse game and then next week in Vegas with the basketball team, followed by Notre Dame's season finale out in Stanford out on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. It's a huge week for Notre Dame athletics. We're going to see if Notre Dame can finish 10-2, and if they do, hopefully, we think they'll get a playoff berth. And then you have Notre Dame's basketball team, the men's basketball team at least. They've got 3 games that very well may dictate kind of the tenor of their season. The one encouraging sign, and I'm sure you guys have kept an eye on out there in Syracuse, is that I think the conference is going to be better this year. We already
I agree.
see Duke and North Carolina getting a couple big wins. Louisville is in the top 10. NC State got into the rankings. I grew up with the ACC being the best conference in the country. I wanted to get back to that, and it's been a bummer the last few years to kind of see the way it's been viewed or the way it's performed. So, we're all Notre Dame fans, Syracuse fans, whoever it may be in the ACC in the month of November and December as they try to go get some big wins that'll hopefully help the conference down the road.
Well, Tony, thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Super interesting stuff as always. Basketball down the line, but, it's the football game tomorrow between Syracuse and number 9 Notre Dame. Tony Simeone, the radio voice of Notre Dame football and not Syracuse men's basketball, Notre Dame men's basketball. Thanks so much, Tony.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And enjoy the game, and then hope to see you when Notre Dame and Syracuse share the hardwood.
Tony Simeone, what a nice guy. My goodness. And he's got a heck of a job. How about that?
Come on.
Call the game and then basketball down the line as well. What do you take away from that, Gabe?
I think the biggest thing that I heard there from Tony is the pressure that's on Notre Dame, not just in this game, but the rest of the season, specifically next week also at Stanford, because with 2 losses, those 2 early losses to start the season, you lose another one.
Back's against the wall.
And it's over because you don't have a conference championship to bail you out
Sure.
like maybe a Miami or Georgia Tech does. So if you lose this game somehow, no matter how unlikely it is, or if you lose against Stanford, this is all cards are in here. They're going to have the home environment on their side. It's one of the best stadiums to play in the country for the home team. But I imagine they're feeling that pressure because this is college football playoff or die here. That's how they treat it there.
Unless they're robots, I'm sure they are feeling that pressure.
100%.
I mean, my goodness, pressure either makes diamonds or you crumble under it. And I guess we'll see what happens with Notre Dame and Syracuse tomorrow. All right, well, we're still talking a little bit more football and talk about diamonds. Adam Hipsky, our reporter in South Bend, my goodness, he's going to talk to us, and I am looking forward to it. He is a stud and a half. Adam on the other side of SportsNite.
WAER's weekly e-newsletter is back, and it's keeping you in the loop.
Get the week's top news, Syracuse sports, new podcast drops, and events happening around Central New York all in one quick read.
Subscribe to get this week's top stories, new podcast episodes, and more in one convenient place, sent every Friday.
WAER's weekly e-newsletter, In the Loop, is sent straight to your inbox every Friday.
Sign up to receive our refreshed and redesigned e-newsletter, In the Loop.
Stay informed, stay connected, and stay in the loop
on WAER.org.
Delve into the rich tapestry of acoustic-led folk, roots, and Americana music here on 88.3 FM WAER. Enjoy national and international acts, as well as local artists every Sunday with host Pete Thomas. Whether you're seeking the comfort of timeless classics or contemporary gems and music discovery, don't miss Common Threads, Sundays from 2 to 5, exclusively on 88.3 WAER, your local NPR station.
NewsHour from the BBC.
Understand what's happening.
With news.
What's going on?
Heat waves, cyclones, storms, floods.
Increasingly unpredictable weather events.
Interviews.
2024 is the hottest year on record.
This is an uncharted situation.
And analysis of the day's global events.
In the Middle East, it's very difficult to be shocked nowadays.
That's NewsHour from the BBC.
Weekdays after morning edition at 9 on WAER, your local NPR station.
When relatives get together, it's the conversation, the chaos, all in the kitchen.
These family gatherings, the food that's cooked is an expression of love, even if it's just ginger ale and paper cups from the grocery store.
Author Carol Boston Weatherford and artist Frank Morrison talk about their new picture book, Family Feast, Sunday on Weekend Edition from NPR News.
Sunday morning from 8 to 10 on WAER.
Welcome back into Sports Night. I'm Gabe Perrin alongside Drew Alaba. If you want to join in on our conversation about tomorrow's game between Syracuse and Notre Dame in South Bend, give us a call, 315-443-2011. You can also interact with us at WAER Sports Talk on X and on YouTube as well. And now we have a very special guest. His name is Adam Hipsky. He's our reporter for the game tomorrow. Adam, how you doing? On the road?
Not on the road. Made it to South Bend. So officially boots on the ground in Notre Dame territory.
Now, we are both Hoosiers. I'm sure you're very familiar with South Bend, as am I. This is a big game for Notre Dame. Every game is big for them because they're, pretty much borderline in the playoff conversation right now. How important is it for them to win this game by a wide margin? They're favored by 35.5 as far as those playoff implications go.
Yeah, Gabe, I think when you talk about playoff implications and winning by a wide margin, I don't necessarily think those two go hand in hand with this Notre Dame team. So I'm going to say not very important. This is a Notre Dame team that you win this week and you win next week, the Irish are going to be in. The College Football Playoff Committee cannot reject a Notre Dame team that has rattled off 10 wins in a row. And, with that, if one Syracuse game, they maybe slip up and it's one possession, maybe they keep it within 14. They're still going to be in the playoffs. Nobody's passing Notre Dame that's already in the top 10. So especially with how well they have handled the rest of their competition during this win stretch, I think Notre Dame, as long as they get the job done, they're in a good spot to hear their name called in the field of 12.
But, Adam, what do you think of the Miami argument? Because obviously, the U beat Notre Dame, albeit way back in August. But how do you deny a two-loss Miami team that beat Notre Dame?
Well, I assume we're talking in this case that Notre Dame wins by a score?
Sure, yes. If it's a close game against Syracuse tomorrow, I understand a win's a win, but what do you think of that?
Well, I think when you look at, past precedents I think the committee really values how teams are playing now. And you look in the SEC with Alabama, that week one loss to Florida State, it really didn't do too much. And now, you get another slip up against Oklahoma, and now Alabama has their backs against the wall. So I think it's somewhat similar with Notre Dame while those early season wins are important, if you stack wins in October and in November, I think they really value how these teams are playing right now. And while Notre Dame hasn't played the strongest competition as of late, I still think that the College Football Playoff Committee is going to favor an Irish team that has gotten the job done and has stacked win after win after win, as opposed to Miami, who, while, picked up that big win earlier in the season, not playing, as strong, at least in the win and loss column, as this Notre Dame team.
Gabe Perrin and Drew Alba with our reporter Adam Hipsky, who is in South Bend for the game tomorrow. And Adam, Fran Brown announced early in the week that Joe Flaherty was going to make his second start of the season. He started. I know. I agree. He started that game against UNC on Halloween. What do you think the ideology is behind starting Joe Flaherty? Because you've seen this rotation of quarterbacks, and how does Fran come to this conclusion that the walk-on lacrosse player should start against number 9 Notre Dame?
Well, I think first and foremost, you're preserving Luke Carney's red shirt. He's got one more game, and when you hear this coaching staff talk, when you hear the players talk, bull eligibility out of the window, all that's really left is sending the seniors out on a high note and making sure they pick up that last win. And I think everyone in that coaching staff knows that right now, with what they've seen, Luke Carney gives this Syracuse team the best chance to win. Not just this year, but maybe a few years in the future. And I think giving him that extra year, and it's somewhat comparable to what Kyle McCord went through a few years ago at Ohio State, where Ryan Day burned his red shirt, and Ryan Day caught some flack for it years later. And I'm not saying Luke Carney is on Kyle McCord level, but coaches get a reputation for burning a kid's red shirt early in his career in meaningless games. So I think right there, you want to save Luke Carney's red shirt. Then when you look at the battle between Joseph Filardi and, Ricky Collins, Joseph Filardi ended that Miami game on a strong note. And I think most importantly, he hasn't turned the ball over yet. He hasn't thrown an interception. So you take what you can get. I know it's a small sample size from Filardi, but Ricky Collins has really struggled with turnovers. And I think in a game like this where you're a heavy underdog, you have to take care of the football. And I think the ideology behind it, Gabe, is honestly just take care of the football, and I think Joe Filardi gives them the best chance to do that.
So I think the next argument is the argument between, do you want your young guys to play against Notre Dame, who maybe have a couple of games left of eligibility before their tact of a year, to maybe get some experience under their belt, big-time environment, top 10 Notre Dame team in South Bend? Or do you want the seniors to kind of play it out? It's their last couple of games, in college. I don't know. It's an interesting argument. I'm not sure where I stand on it. I'd probably lean just kind of rolling out the seniors in a game that's probably unwinnable anyways. Are you with me there, Adam?
Well, I think you have to find the balance. There's 60 minutes of football to be played, and I think you give the seniors the chance to go out there and compete. But, listen, you throw 11 guys out on the field. You can find the balance. There can be a middle ground where you can give the edge to the seniors and let them get some run in South Bend. And, this is a fun game to be in. Notre Dame's a good atmosphere. So you can do that while you can also, give a couple of freshmen and sophomores that will maybe have an increased role, a year from now. I think that there's a balance. You can football positionally is a massive puzzle, and you're just trying to find the pieces that go in the right way. So, I think offensively and defensively, you can see maybe a mixture of both. I don't think you really need to, firmly put yourself one way or another on whether or not you give the advantage to maybe some veterans or some younger guys that could have, increased volume a year from now.
And Adam, you mentioned the atmosphere over in South Bend.
It'll be loud.
It's going to be crazy. They are fanatics about football. It's almost like a slice of the SEC and the Hoosier State out there. It's one of the biggest stadiums in the country. And, of course, you're on the brink of making the playoffs after finishing as the national runner-up last year. How does this younger Cuse team with a lot of freshman starters, how do you think they try to handle that big stage and that just raucous crowd in South Bend?
Yeah, and I'm not taking anything away from what this environment is going to pose tomorrow, because Notre Dame has had 19 straight sellouts, but I think for Notre Dame standards, this crowd tomorrow could be a little sleepier than some Notre Dame crowds. You mentioned they're on the brink of making a playoff, but that's the standard for the Irish. If anything, the fact that they've lost 2 games already is somewhat of a disappointment. And I know that was, a few months ago and they've moved past it. But, Gabe, firsthand what Indiana weather is in late November.
Sure
it's a 3:30 game. The sun sets early. It's
How is the weather over there, Adam?
I think that for Notre Dame standards, maybe not the exact crowd that you're used to seeing. But when you look at the Syracuse team handling, the big stage and whatnot, if there was an environment that you could draw a comparison to, it's probably Clemson, at least before the rain delay and before a lot of fans filtered out. I think that Syracuse showed that they could handle it in that environment. So who knows? I wouldn't say Miami was quite to that level. SMU was quite to that level. So I think out of everything to be concerned about, I think the X's and O's give Syracuse a much greater disadvantage than necessarily the home field advantage.
Hey, Adam, how is that Indiana weather over there?
Well, Drew, it's not central New York, but it's similar.
Pretty close?
It's similar.
Kind of near the shore of Lake Michigan. We get a little bit of lake effect. So before we let you go, Adam, talking about this game, this is the chance that Syracuse has to play spoiler, just like they did against Miami last year. And with all the talk, with the 35.5-point line, big underdog Syracuse are, what do they need to do? What needs to go right for them to hang with Notre Dame?
Listen, Gabe, I don't like playing the transitive property, but when you look at a common opponent, Miami beat Notre Dame, and Syracuse hung tight with Miami until Ricky Collins and, the turnovers started to unravel for Syracuse. So I think you have to limit possessions, and you can't turn the ball over. You can't give Notre Dame a short field because you know what Jeremiah Love can do. You know what that running game can do. They're certainly experienced, and you don't want to make a mistake. But if you want to play spoiler and you want to hang tight, you have to have some things roll your way, some 50-50 bowls, whether that's a turnover defensively, maybe a blocked punt, return a punt, recover an onside kick. You look at that Clemson game, and I think what really gave Syracuse that jolt of energy was Jaden O's onside kick that, he recovered. So I think something like that, something that's maybe a little bit out of the ordinary, where Syracuse can make a play that gives that away energy or that away sideline some energy and maybe takes the air out of Notre Dame Stadium a little bit. And C.J. Carr, while he's been outstanding this year, he's still in his first year as a starter. He threw 2 interceptions a week ago. He can be prone to the mistake. So if Syracuse can take advantage, maybe dial up a little bit of pressure, make him throw an errant pass, airmail one and have a safety over the top, I think that's going to be huge for Syracuse if it wants to hang tight. Everyone knows it's an uphill battle, but, you have to make those special teams or defensive plays if the Orange want to hang in it and make those final 15 minutes at least somewhat close.
One more thought from me, Adam. You mentioned big mistakes. C.J. Carr, the quarterback for Notre Dame, really hasn't made a whole lot of them, just 6 interceptions this year, but is coming off of the first multi-interception game of the season for him against number 22 Pitt, a couple of picks. Do you predict maybe Jeremiah Love gets even more of a lion's share of the ball because C.J. Carr just came off of a couple interceptions and the nature of the game, you want to kind of not give Syracuse any life at all in a momentum-swinging type of play?
Absolutely. I think there's no doubt about it. I think that, you heard earlier in the show, Notre Dame wants to keep the ball. It doesn't want to turn it over, obviously. But, yeah, sure, Jeremiah Love, is one of the most sure-handed running backs in the entire country. So, certainly, I think you want to keep it in his hands. I think the Notre Dame run defense has left a lot to be desired throughout this season. So, certainly, I think that's probably an area that Notre Dame looks to exploit early and often. So, to answer your question, concisely, Drew, yes, I think you'll see a lot of running game from Notre Dame tomorrow.
It is a big game tomorrow. Less for Syracuse, more for Notre Dame, but we'll have all the coverage right here on WAER. Adam Hipsky will be the boots on the ground for us there. Adam, have a wonderful night in South Bend, my friend.
Thanks, guys.
When we come back, we're going to switch to basketball. The Syracuse basketball team
finally got some hoops.
Yeah, finally. It's going to be wonderful. The Players Era Festival coming up in Las Vegas. Syracuse going there, playing on Monday and Tuesday. We'll be right back on Sports Night on WAER.
Your source for arts and entertainment information. WAER Syracuse Public Media is supported by Red House Arts Center, presenting Guys and Dolls, set in Damon Runyon's mythical New York City. Guys and Dolls features colorful characters and classic tunes, and explores the unlikely intersection of love, luck, and loyalty in a world of gamblers and dreamers. Friday, December 5th through Sunday, December 21st. Ticket and event information at theredhouse.org.
No one can predict if or when a song will go viral, but when Dafoe's song Poor Madeline started racking up tons of views and streams online, they were ready.
And I was playing shows every weekend in New York, and I was just okay, how do I take this a step further?
You'll hear how Dafoe kept going, and you'll hear them perform live on the next World Cafe.
Saturday afternoon at 1 on WAER.
4 men face starvation on the open sea when the captain makes a calculation to kill and, consume the cabin boy.
This is the better thing to do. This isn't just murder. This is killing one person to save 3 lives. This is a good thing, right?
Wrong, said British courts in 1884. Adam Cohen talks about his new book, Captain's Dinner, Saturday and Weekend Edition from NPR News.
Sunday morning from 8 to 10 on WAER.
It's Connor Knighton guest hosting this week on Mountain Stage as we welcome back Stephen Kellogg along with Jill Sobiel, Caleb Cottle, the David Mayfield Parade, and new music from Mindy Smith.
Hi, this is Jill Sobiel, and join us this week in live performance on Mountain Stage.
Sunday from noon to 2 on 88.3 FM WAER.
There
is a one-stop listen for everything Syracuse athletics.
Syracuse men's lacrosse had arguably maybe Gary Gates' best weekend ever as head coach.
The Ostrom Avenue podcast provides unique opinions plus exciting interviews from industry experts.
The voice of Syracuse men's lacrosse and Syracuse women's basketball as well. Tim Leonard, Javon Edmonds of Syracuse.com.
Check out weekly episodes and listen at WAER.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back into Sports Night. We only got 15 more minutes until 9 p.m. It's Drew Albaugh and Gabe Perrin. We're going to bring the energy all the way to the finish line. And if you want to call us in, please do at 315-443-2011. You can also interact at WAER Sports Talk on X and on YouTube. Gabe, we got 15 minutes left, so why not talk some hoops? It's the one thing we've been alluding to on the show. Love myself some football, but yeah, on the 315 at this time of the year, it's time to talk basketball because this Syracuse men's basketball team, yes, albeit a close win against Monmouth, but undefeated. Really quickly, though, shout out women's basketball, a 61-49 win over Utah. They're legit as well, 5-0. A couple of teams on the hill here doing pretty good stuff on with hoops.
The past couple of years, Drew, I mean, both the men's and the women's teams kind of getting to slow starts at the start of the season. I mean, remember the men's team last year going to double overtime with Youngstown State a few years prior, losing to Colgate. Now that's not the case. You know, two undefeated teams. I'm really excited to see how the next week and a half, 2 weeks go.
Oh, yeah, and it gets real difficult for Syracuse men's basketball this Monday, taking on, drumroll please, number 2 Houston. You go from Monmouth, which you just beat 78-73 and won that. The Hawks had a chance to tie things up with under 30 seconds left, and now you face maybe the best defense in the entire country. Kelvin Sampson, one of the best defensive minds maybe ever in college basketball. They played this blitz defense where they double team the ball or the ball handler off of a screen at the top of the key. It makes real tough decisions for guards. Everyone's going to have to be on their stuff if Syracuse has any chance to beat a really good Houston squad.
The thing that gives me a little bit of hope for this game against Houston is the difference, the biggest difference that I've seen so far in Syracuse this year. It's the physicality. This is a big, strong team. It's not necessarily the tallest team you'll ever find.
No true Eddie Lampkin type center.
No, but you've got a bunch of big, strong guys with big wingspans who can play around those really tough screens and just play against a really tough defense like you see Houston and Kelvin Sampson roll out year after year after year. So you rely on the guys like Donnie Freeman. You rely on the guys like Sadiq White, the William Kyles of the world, to really just kind of...
Do you rely on Sadiq White at this point?
I say why not? I know he didn't have the most flashy game. He only played 11 minutes against Monmouth, 8 points. But he's one of those guys where he is that athletic. He can play against that Houston-style defense where he can, if you give him the ball and if you give him the green light, he can go out and dominate.
But he's not going to start at this point, Gabe.
No, but you can get that just juice off the bench. The juicing station. That's what it's all about.
The juicing station with Noah Laudel.
It's all about the juicing station, man, especially against the number 2 team in the country.
I don't think it's all about the juicing station. I think the players on the court are also very important, Gabe. And speaking of the first 5 out there, the argument has been, do you throw J.J. Starling, the veteran who has only played 1 full game against Monmouth where he did not look good at all, airballed a free throw, went 2 for 5 from the line. Do you put him in the starting rotation? I think yes. Or do you move to a young guy like a Kyan Anthony or a Sadiq White?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you there, Drew, because J.J. Starling, I just think he's got to stay because you look
He's the veteran.
Game.
He's the experience.
Yeah, he's got that experience. He's played on now multiple ACC Power 4 teams. And the one replacement that you would put in his place is Kyan Anthony, who played 21 minutes and had a pretty rough shooting game, 2 for 9 from the field against Monmouth. He would, if you were to point to one player who was maybe one of the biggest reasons, maybe along with Donnie Freeman, but he did lead the team in scoring.
Somehow this is going.
Kind of lost that game, or almost lost that game against Monmouth.
Somehow this is going by the wayside. I was on the double overtime, which we'll also have for Monday's game. We'll have it tomorrow versus Notre Dame. make sure to tune in. I was on it with Dan Shalom a few days ago, and his argument for J.J. Starling versus Kyan Anthony was how bad J.J. did against Monmouth. I understand it wasn't a great game, but Kyan Anthony did not play well against Monmouth. Not at all. In fact, the plus-minus was negative for Kyan, positive for J.J. Starling.
Yeah.
When you add in the fact that Kyan's 18 years old, and J.J. Starling at this point is one of the more experienced guys, if not the most experienced guy on this team. I don't know why it's getting swept under the rug how bad Kyan Anthony's performance was. It feels like I pulled my sister's hair, and then my brother did something 10 times worse, and somehow I'm getting away with it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And that's not to say that Kyan Anthony hasn't had a great start to the season, because those first 3 games were, almost brilliant. But
they were really good.
That Monmouth... against Monmouth, 2 for 9. And yeah, you could look to someone like Donnie Freeman, who went 3 for 10 from the field. But also, Donnie Freeman recognized that, hey, I'm not shooting that well today.
Donnie Freeman's the guy.
And he started bruising inside, and he shot 14 free throws, made 12 of them. So
that's the standard. By the way, Syracuse 56% from the line.
Yeah.
That cannot happen.
That cannot.
Against Monmouth. It can't happen against Houston, certainly. You can't leave free points on the board. Syracuse needs to shoot at a clip above 80% at the free throw line, right around 50 to 60% from the field. 3-point line or 3-point land for Syracuse, actually pretty solid, right under 40%. The best of the year for Syracuse. So that was the one thing that went well for SU against Monmouth. But against Kelvin Sampson and this Houston squad, who is so prolific in everything they do, one mistake can cost you this game. You have to be perfect. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's very, very, very difficult.
And you mentioned experience, talking about JJ and Kyan, and that's where that comes in after a rough game, because JJ Starling is someone we've seen time and time again for multiple seasons now come back from a rough performance and score 20-plus points. Kyan is a freshman. There's no guarantee that he's going to do that, because this is the first bad game that we've seen him play in
How do you
Orange.
respond
So we
against
don't
the Houston?
know. And you can't risk that. And of course, you're the underdog anyways, but you cannot risk that.
Agreed.
Against the number 2 team in the country. You have to put the lineup out there that gives you the best shot of winning. And I think Adrian Autry is going to stick with JJ in the lineup. I'd be surprised if he didn't. But you need a bounce-back game from both players, really.
Gabe Perrin and myself, Drew Alba, believe J.J. Starling will be in the starting lineup against number 2 Houston on Monday. If you disagree, or if you agree with us and want your opinion to be heard, call us at 315-443-2011. But you are running out of time until 9 p.m., just about 8 minutes. We'll get you on the air, though, if you call right now at 315-443-2011. All right, this isn't the only game in the Players Era Festival. You got the big one against Houston, but most people here in Syracuse, including myself, not necessarily chalking that one up to a loss, but if you win, it's gravy, right?
Yes.
Not the expectation to come out with a W. However, against Kansas, struggling a little bit, already a couple losses on the year, ranked number 24, and in game number 3, which is really the one I think Syracuse could win, they'd most likely play Rutgers, Notre Dame, UNLV, or Maryland, all unranked competition. Syracuse could come away with a win over in Vegas. Does it come against Kansas, though, in game number 2 on Tuesday? I don't think so at this point. I think the Jayhawks just a little bit too much experience and already have played some great competition where Syracuse has not.
See, I disagree, though, because Kansas right now, they're super vulnerable. You just got the news today that Darren Peterson, their leading scorer, averaging 21 points a game, won't play. And you're coming off of 2 losses, and now you've got them right where you want them if you're Syracuse. Yes, the talent goes way deeper than just Peterson, but if you have your best game and Kansas is just off their game a little bit, we've already seen it twice this year, losing ACC teams, why not another one?
But the 2 losses for Kansas against a ranked UNC and a ranked Duke, a top 5 Blue Devil squad where you lose by 12 points, I mean, that's a close game. So the losses for Kansas, yes, maybe not necessarily momentum building, but I don't think it shatters the confidence of the Jayhawks in any way.
They're not bad losses, Drew, but I would make the argument that at their best, and I don't think we've seen their best yet so far this season against these non-conference team. At their best, Syracuse can play like a ranked team, like a UNC or a Duke. And if they come out with that style of play, they come out strong and fast and play at least solid defense like they did in the first 3 games, I think that could be a win.
And Syracuse,
maybe a big one.
Syracuse right now still ranked, actually has the best defense in the entire country. And right behind them at 53 points per game, number 2 in the nation, it's Houston. So a little defensive battle over in Las Vegas. I'm just worried, Gabe, that this could snowball. As the snow is starting to finally fall here in Syracuse, if you lose against Houston, which most likely will happen, and then maybe you're a little more optimistic than me. You said earlier you're an optimistic guy, Gabe.
I try.
If Syracuse, and I think Syracuse loses against Kansas, now you got 2 straight losses. You don't know what's going to happen in that game 3. It could be on Thanksgiving. It could be really, really late, and I'm talking like midnight East Coast time on that Wednesday night. You could very well lose that one, especially if you play a UNLV who will actually have somewhat of a home crowd atmosphere over in Vegas, although how many UNLV fans are there really? And then Syracuse plays Tennessee. So now all of a sudden, you could say, okay, you beat Monmouth by 5, and then you rattle off 4 straight losses. That is a very realistic possibility that Syracuse and head coach Adrian Autry has to nip in the bud right now. It's got to be done against a Kansas or whoever plays in that 3rd game.
The thing with these early season Thanksgiving tournaments, you see all of them. I mean, every team's basically playing in them next week, is that with the neutral site, I'm not sure how many teams actually take them at face value because you're sometimes thousands of miles away from home like Syracuse will be. But that's not the issue here. The issue here is you come back, and basically as soon as you get back, you play a ranked Tennessee team. And yes, it's at home.
Tough schedule.
But there's no break. There's no mid-major non-conference game to really break that up. So this team, I can guarantee you, is going to be tired after these 3 games.
Sure.
It's either 3 games in a row or Monday, Tuesday, then Thursday on Thanksgiving for whatever reason. And then you come back and play a really tough Tennessee team that you lost to last year. So the thing I'm scared of is the confidence just going away if you take 2 or 3 losses in Las Vegas and you come home and you just don't even give your best effort against Tennessee.
I totally agree. That could happen very easily. Gabe, you going back to Indiana for Thanksgiving?
I am. I'm heading home on Sunday. Maybe I'll connect with Adam Hipsky. He only lives about 15 minutes away from me.
Wow,
we went
a town over.
Neighboring high schools. I'm from Carmel. He's from Fishers. So
there we go.
Maybe we'll do a joint Thanksgiving.
Would you prefer that 3rd game to be on Thanksgiving? A little midday Thanksgiving Syracuse action, or like a really late Wednesday night? I'm on the West Coast for Thanksgiving, so it won't be as late night for me. So I probably prefer a Wednesday game. But
oh, come on,
Thanksgiving.
Nothing about us Eastern time folks. Come on.
Thanksgiving hoops action. That sounds kind of electric, huh?
That'd be really fun. I don't know exactly what time it would be. It could basically be anywhere in the day, but morning, during dinner, after dinner, that'd be perfect. Maybe go football, then Syracuse basketball, then football. I would love that, honestly.
Really quick before we get out of here, Gabe, give me a prediction for Houston versus Syracuse. I got the Cougars taking it by probably 15 points, somewhere in the 75 to 60 region. Maybe SU keeps it close, but do you think there's any chance Syracuse comes away with the win?
I think there's a shot because it's going to be a really tough, rabid defensive battle. I still think it's probably going to be about a 10-point game.
Okay.
Give me a nice defensive battle, like 55 to 45. Give me
Whoa.
60 to 50.
Okay.
It's the 2 best defenses in the country, so why not?
And then versus Kansas?
Versus Kansas, give me a dub. Come on. I think.
What? What do you mean, come on? Kansas is a great team.
It's just like I said, Kansas is a great team, but they're vulnerable right now. Their best player isn't playing, and this is where you take advantage. I think Adrian Autry attacks. I don't. Give me the exact opposite of Houston. Give me like 90 to 80. Okay,
I think Syracuse comes away with a loss in Kansas and sneaks away with a Game 3 victory. All right, Gabe. Well, this has been fun on Sports Night. We're about to wrap things up, but first, a quick thank yous to our producer, Nick Evans, our engineer, Josh Richardson, on the board, pressing all the right buttons. On desk, Andrew Forster and Rowan Mastrangelo. Our next Sport Night is Friday, November 28th. Syracuse football versus Boston College. And our next broadcast is tomorrow against Notre Dame at 3:30. McClurg Remodeling Countdown to Tip-Off is at 3 with Nick Evans. Double Overtime with Andrew Della Piana and Dan Papillo is at 8:30. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night.